sounds like it's the gun owners who have the hidden agenda. But when you go and you listen or watch the video, it becomes very quickly obvious, very obvious, that Open Carry Texas was very direct and blunt on this is why we want to do our rally in Fifth Ward. This is what led to it. We were invited / challenged, so we're here to do that because we do think very strongly. And somebody said if we thought strongly, then we wouldn't just do it in smaller, certain areas, but we'd do it in areas such as Fifth Ward. If we don't, somebody said if Open Carry doesn't, that they're racist, blah, blah, blah. So, you make points. Yeah, we'll go there and do it. We've got no issues doing it. You want us there, we're there. So we went there, and all of a sudden, all these people who are anti-gunners are doing everything they can to keep them from showing that they're willing to do their rallies anywhere in Texas where awareness needs to be raised, etc. And it defeats the whole narrative that groups such as Open Carry Texas or Come and Take It Texas are racist groups. And there's the agenda, is that the new Black Panthers and their supporters want anybody who supports the Constitution, supports the Second Amendment, to be automatically equated to being racist or similar to the KKK. And that is so not the case, especially when you realize that the NRA was founded in order to ensure that the emancipated people, and most of which were black, now citizens, freed slaves, were given and had their Second Amendment rights protected, because one of the first things they try to do is say, yeah, you might be a citizen, but you don't have a right to a gun. Well, the NRA was founded to say, yeah, they do. They have the right to protect their property just like you do. And that's why the NRA was founded. And they still believe that for all citizens, all non-convicted felons, or let me restate that, all people who have not been convicted of a felony. Probably a better way to put it. To have that right to self-defense and defense of family and defense of nation and defense of community that is guaranteed and protected by the Second Amendment. It's not granted by the Second Amendment. It's protected by the Second Amendment. It's granted by our Creator. You have that as a condition of birth. You have the right to self-defense with whatever tools are available. And firearms are one of the tools available. And our founders thought and believed that, because it doesn't state firearms, it says arms. That includes knives, swords, pickaxes. And it could be reasonably argued it would include tanks and infantry fighting vehicles too. The only thing about those are, look folks, you can own a tank. You can even own a tank and have rounds for the main cannon. You can't drive it on the streets. Why not? You'll tear up the streets. Now, if you're a multimillionaire and you can afford to repair the streets after you drive them up or dig them all up and ruin them so that your neighbors can't get to work, and you're going to have that repair crew going right behind you so that the people who are behind you and need to get to work aren't trapped in their homes because you decided to tear up the public streets, that's a different story. So, I see no issue with somebody having a tank on their own private property, but you have to have room to move it around. I mean, if I put a tank in my backyard, I'd have room for nothing else. My dog would have no place to run and play. I'd have no place for my garden, no place for my kids to play. So really, not an effective tool for me. But I could see if you owned a ranch down in southern Arizona or or South Texas, and you were sick of drug cartels coming in and shooting AK-47s at your livestock, well, now suddenly a tank seems like something that could actually make reasonable sense. So would a 50 cal machine gun mounted in the back of a pickup truck. But there's the powers that be within the government several years ago, a couple of decades ago, decided that that was a little bit more than your average citizen needed. Well, I tend to disagree. If you have can show that you have a legitimate use, like protecting your land if you're a rancher down on the border. But your average suburban dweller or urban dweller probably has no place to store a tank and really has no use for it, at least without tearing up the local neighborhood so that nobody else has access to what everybody's taxes, or every taxpayer's taxes, has paid for use of. Anyway, that's my Second Amendment rant for the morning so far. I'm sure it'll be something else that'll tip me off. But again, school started, and if you're in Texas, and some Texas schools, that means the teachers are armed. Yippee. Talking about more anti-gun and pro-gun and pro-Second Amendment protection issues. Guess who just jumped into the mix for trying to infringe upon the gun rights of law-abiding citizens? This should come as a huge surprise. How is this person? Why would this person do this? Bill Gates, Mr. Windows, Mr. Microsoft, just dumped $1 million into the Washington State anti-gun campaign, trying to support legislation for increased background checks and limiting who can own and carry a weapon, unlike the fact that the U.S. Constitution says that shall not be infringed. So there you go. Wonderful people. But good news out there from the Second Amendment sphere is, court cases seem to be coming up more and more in favor. No matter how much more the minority of population, the gun grabbers, rattle the cage, no matter how much Shannon Watts flaps her gums and squawks and screams, "Guns, kids, guns, gah!" It doesn't matter. We have people with common sense in some aspects of government, although they still have passed laws infringing upon our Second Amendment rights. But the courts have been doing a decent job in saying, Well, in California, a federal judge, who was appointed by all people, Bubba Clinton, ruled that 10-day waiting periods violate the Second Amendment and struck down California's state law that requires the 10-day waiting period to purchase a firearm. So there you have it, folks. Federal court said waiting periods are unconstitutional. Bye-bye. So there's another win for the Second Amendment. You pay for it now, pick it up in 10 days. You pay for it now, pick it up now. Do a background check before you exchange the money. That's the way they do it in Arizona. So, you have that. Good news. So, didn't Bill Gates lose pretty big in the courts already? Now he's going to put $1 million into trying to pass legislation that's probably going to be deemed unconstitutional. The man just needs to stick with what he knows. Go write me another word processor. Do some improvements. Fix the stuff you screwed up with Windows 8. Just that simple. Write a better version of Windows 7 or Windows 6. But, yeah. Alright, folks. We're winding up towards the end of the program already. Only about 9 minutes left. I want you to, well, I don't want you to. I'd like you to. But something that may interest you is to head on over to BuzzPo. There's some great stories that are a little bit more uplifting. For example, there's one story there about what a taxidermist found inside of a half-ton alligator. This huge alligator was pulled out of a river in Alabama, and decided to have it stuffed, and the taxidermist found some interesting things inside of there. And there's a great article over at BuzzPo, and of course a video to go with it. So go ahead and look at that article. Also, things to be looking forward to. Those of you interested in psychology, even if it's just as a lay person, such as me, or if you do so professionally, like my wife, a little bit a difference in our points of view, our perspectives there. But great study, or maybe not a great study, but an interesting study, just came out of the University of Texas, their Houston chapter, or Houston campus, did a little bit of a psychological and psychiatric and neuropsychological, or whatever the heck it is, study. They did a study on brain activity and pre-adolescent and adolescent children in regards to violent video games. And they have directly linked the amount of video game play, especially violent video games, to clinical depression. Interesting, folks. And I do know that some people have linked clinical depression to things like Sandy Hook. That young man was disturbed and had some mental health issues, and was even on some medications for, I think depression was one of the things I'd have to review. But if it was, could that have all related back to violent video games? It's a good question. And this study coming from the University of Texas kind of shows that is very possible. There is a lot of data that supports that. And it's like Glenn Beck wrote in his book Control. He kind of alluded, well, he didn't just allude, he pointed fingers at violent video games as being more responsible for violent crime in America than the prevalence of lawful gun ownership. And well, here you have it. You have an actual scientific study, even though everybody kind of said that the studies that Beck cited were all poorly done. Well, here you have another study that has popped up that says, well, maybe they weren't so bad. Maybe they were actually onto something. So, more data to look at, an interesting study, whichever side you fall in on the the effect of violent video games on people, whether you say it doesn't do anything or you think that it does. It doesn't matter. It's a good study. Go and read and put in your bank and kind of take in and do your reassessment. Me, I've actually played some violent video games myself, but I did so as an adult, not so much as a child. And on occasion, I do like them for the escapism. Now at other times, I play them, and I will admit they do bother me because they're a little bit too close to things that I've had to do in real life, and would rather not do those things and call it recreation, because I didn't find them recreation then when I had to do them for real. So doing them in a video gaming environment, I don't see how it's a game. It's, like I said, too close to some of the things that I had to do in real life, and not so fun. But that's me. You know, I'll still play things like I almost said World of Warcraft, which I've never played, but I will play Warhammer 40K, the video game versions of it, and I'll play games like Fear, which is kind of a little bit of a science fiction-y horror twist on a first-person shooter. But I understand that the whole game premise behind it is not real and not realistic. Although it looks realistic, it still is not based in things that can happen in reality. But that's my take on that. But I don't let my kids do it. My kids, when they do get a chance to play video games, they're kind of restricted on which ones they can play. And we watch that. We want them to be fun and wholesome and educational. And there are times where we will not let them play games. We'll say, you want to play a game? Well, read a book. Read this many pages in a book first before you play the video game, because reading is so much more enjoyable, and B, so much better than video games as far as development goes. But that's us. That's our rules. But yeah, there's that just came out. And then, as promised, or as threatened, or as hinted at, Governor Rick Perry's defense team said that they were going to throw in their motion for dismissal, and they did so. It's about 60 pages long, and I have a copy of it, and I will be writing an article on that for BuzzPo, due out later today, and I'll probably even have snippets of the actual writ of habeas corpus that was filed yesterday for the dismissal of this incredibly stupid case brought up by a corrupt, drunk criminal who's currently sitting in the office of district attorney for Travis County, Texas, when she pushed for the indictment of Rick Perry for, well, he was doing the right thing, at least in my opinion. But anyway, we'll see what the courts have to say about that, and right now it's kind of looking like they're going to lean towards Rick Perry's side on that one. Anyway, folks, that brings us to the end of the better part of this hour. If you're still with me, hey, congratulations, I didn't put you completely to sleep. And for those of you listening to the podcast, hopefully you took enough breaks and got yourself the coffee in there, because this has been a interesting, for me, Tuesday morning. But we'll be right back here tomorrow. Tomorrow's hump day, so tomorrow we get you up to that peak to help carry you through the rest of the week. And then, of course, then we have our Thursday, and then we come up on Freedom Friday, and that'll kill the week for a nice long weekend, because, yes, next weekend is Labor Day weekend. So, again, if you haven't had a chance to call in, I would really like you to call in and chat about any of the subjects that we have here, or anything else in the news that you deem worthy of discussion. I'm pretty flexible on that. So, just got to keep it clean, folks. But, of course, the number here to call in for tomorrow or the next day or whenever is 520-226-8255. 8567. That's 520-226-8567.